Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can I make it 7:30, so we'll start. Can I remind people that we're still in COVID rules, so unless you're speaking, whilst that you should have your masks on, please. And we need to keep the doors and windows of the chamber open, so I apologise. It's raining and it's not as nice outside as it was. But unfortunately, these are the rules at the moment until we reach the 19th. Can I start with item 1, apologies for absence? Are there any apologies? None taken. Item 2, declarations of interest. Councillors, do any of you wish to declare an interest? I'm seeing no hands, so we'll take no declarations. Item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have your permission to approve the minutes of the previous meeting? Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 4, matters arising. Does anyone have any matters arising from the previous meeting to raise? No one indicating. Item 5, written questions from the public. I believe we have one. Adam? Mr. Cook? Warner Baker.
Hello, thank you. I'm a resident and stakeholder of the land where the proposed Stalk Crossing, Pine Corner to Edinburgh Way, will take place. On the 11th of 6/21, I showed Mr. Hardware and my ward councillor, Matthew Saggers, some of my many concerns. I showed you the poor state of the existing surface water crossing, the storm drainage, where it enters the River Stalt at River Way, and the associated stench, and I recall that you took photographic evidence. I also showed you the serious flood damage in the form of uprooted trees and the underboring to the existing Latin Mill, all of which has occurred since the recent widening of Edinburgh Way and the other building schemes to the east of Harlow. All of this poses a risk to the existing flood defences that were installed at great expense to Harlow Council, Circular 2002 to 2003. This was when the nearby weir was compromised by flooding, and it caused a partial collapse of the footpath to the south of the Stalk River and a threat to Mead Park Industrial Estate. Recently, you gave a statement on behalf of the leadership of the council to yourharlow.com, stating that you would raise my objections with the relevant authorities and the stakeholders. However, many councillors, including those with relevant portfolios and our own MP, have indicated that they will refer all of my questions and concerns to you. I'm concerned that the relevant authorities, such as the Highways Authority, they might not have been contacted. It is essential to investigate whether these schemes have caused an increase of surface water discharging into the River Stalt. This will seriously affect the planning decision of the central and eastern proposed River Stalt crossing. Please could you show me that you have consulted in full with the council and updated me on the progress in relation to my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warner Baker. Now, I'm going to turn to Councillor Hardware, to whom you addressed your question, and give him the chance to either read his answer to you or take it as read. And then you'll be invited back at the end of that to ask a supplementary question. You can choose to stay standing there or sit back down whilst Councillor Hardware gives his answer. Councillor Hardware.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I will read out my answer, and I apologise to everybody. This is going to be rather long, because I thought it important to give some background to the answer. So thank you, Mr. Warner Baker, for your question. The Gilston development and its associated transport infrastructure has been the subject of significant debate and consultation over many years, and a project we have inherited from the previous Labour administration. The development is enshrined in the East Hertfordshire Local Plan, which was adopted in 2018 following public consultation and an independent examination which found the plan to be sound. Equally, the principle of the river crossings to support the development at Gilston is also enshrined in the Harlow Local Development Plan, which was also consulted upon and was adopted in December 2020. by the previous administration, also following independent examination by a planning inspector. Harlow Council is supportive of the development of new housing to the north of Harlow at Gilston as being vital to meet the future needs of the town and the surrounding area. It is vital to ensure that appropriate levels of infrastructure are provided to support this development, and traffic model has demonstrated that the Eastern Stork Crossing is required to enable this. Equally, we have to balance the increasing need for new housing with impacts on the environment. Climate change and global warming is a major issue facing humanity, and we need to minimise the impact upon it. Conversely, there has been a housing shortage in the UK for many, many years. It is one of the reasons why house prices are so high and why it is difficult for many, in particular the younger generations, to get on the housing ladder. It is a very difficult balance to find. To answer Mr. Warner-Baker's question, I can confirm that the highways authorities and the lead local flood authorities have been engaged and provided comments on the application for the Eastern Stork Crossing. The proposal includes a series of new drainage infrastructure which will deal with surface water arising from the new road. Note that the bridge is elevated at the riverway location over existing features. Surface water runoff from the new highway will be stored beneath the highway surface, and systems designed to accommodate flows that may arise from a 1 in 30-year storm event. Towards Riverway, where the urban area is more constrained, the new roundabout surface water will be attenuated and treated by a conveyance and a separator to remove fine pollutants, particles and oils before discharging to the river Stork. All drainage infrastructure must meet the same level of surface water runoff as a greenfield or undeveloped site. The assessments indicate that there will be no impact on surface water flooding arising from the development. In terms of preventing flood risk and integrating sustainable drainage through design, the Eastern Stork Crossing proposals meet the requirements of the Environment Agency and the lead local flood authorities. The drainage strategy has been agreed in principle at this stage, and subsequent engineering design stages will refine details about the proposed attenuation features, which will be controlled by a series of conditions attached to any planning approval. The Highways Authority has also confirmed to me that approval of these final details will be required before the Section 278 road adoption process can be completed. I am therefore satisfied that there is sufficient engagement from the relevant authorities in relation to this proposal. Stakeholders for the Stork Crossing, which have and will continue to be engaged as the Gilston development progresses, include Natural England, the Environment Agency, the Highways Agency, lead local flood authorities, highways authorities, ecology departments, archaeology departments, mineral and waste authorities of both county councils, Herts and Middlesex Wildlife Trust, Essex Wildlife Trust, the Canal and River Trust, Network Rail, Greater Anglia, and the National Air Drone Safeguarding Team at Stansted Airport. Connectivity via the Stork crossings is integral to our once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to attract the transformative investment and growth that Harlow needs in order to fulfil our significant potential. Sir Frederick Gibbard described Harlow as an organism which go on changing and being rebuilt as the needs of the people alter. And the Garden Town and associated infrastructure is the beginning of that new chapter. There is no evidence, to link the river flooding with the expansion of Edinburgh Way. These may be nothing more than coincidence. There are a number of drainage channels and potential sources of increased flow into the river Stork over the last few years, when there have also been, and probably the actual cause, a number of very high rainfall incidents. The river catchment for the river Stork is huge, and most of the river Stork navigation comprises hard, reinforced packages as it functions as a navigable waterway. There are few parts of the river where the banks are not reinforced and therefore vulnerable to erosion. The Latin Island section is one such location where the banks are not reinforced in all locations, as the river splits into to provide a relief flow of water around the rock. Harlow Council is aware of the erosion damage at the weir mentioned by Mr. Warren-Baker. I can confirm that the Council's environmental team is currently in discussion with the Environment Agency and the Canal Rivers Trust to agree a programme of repairs to this part of the river. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harlow. Mr. Warren-Baker, do you have a supplementary question for us?
I do.
Please do.
It's a little bit confusing because obviously that is a long explanation, but I will try to contain it into one short question. In regard to the fact that I showed Councillor Saggers where the river had already broke its banks, which you've just acknowledged is the case, and you did briefly mention the 30-year flood event, which I can confirm is inaccurate because on that 30-year flood event it shows my land unaffected by floodwater. I have confirmed with Mr. Saggers and showed him on my island that the river was flooded to a depth of almost 2 feet last year. This was not after continued snow, the melt, which is when you normally get flooding, but this was groundwater discharging directly into the river Stort. So this is a very, very serious concern of mine. I contacted Canal River Trust, and then the planning department got back to me and they said they were very concerned and they would not tolerate another drop of water being discharged into the river Stort. So my question is, have you raised the issue with Canal River Trust? Because they have told me at this stage the developers have not contacted or obliged their obligation to uphold the law of putting through regulations. That's my question to you. Simply, are you aware that Canal River Trust have not been informed of their statutory duties from the developer if any water is discharged into the river Stort?
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Councillor Harlow.
Thank you. I am assured that Canal Rivers Trust have been consulted and have provided comments.
Thank you, Councillor Harlow. I'm sure Mr. Warren-Baker will probably be contacting you afterwards anyway to continue the conversation. And if I can just add on behalf of a number of councillors, I suspect on both sides of the chamber, Mr. Warren-Baker, there are a number of members of the planning committee who are being very careful, or substitutes on the planning committee, who are being very careful not to issue any statements or respond to people in a definitive way on this, so that they can keep their votes at the planning committee should they be required to vote. Thank you very much for bringing your questions here tonight.
Can I continue to attend or can I continue?
Yes, you feel free to stay in the audience or leave at any time.
Thank you.
Item 6, written questions from councillors. There are none. Item 7, petitions. There are none. Item 8, the forward work plan, which is for noting. First of all, are there any questions on the forward work plan? Councillor Edwards.
Item 10, 12, 849, the community resilience strategy. I know that there's a report coming, I think, in October. My concerns, though, relate to the COVID figures that were released today. As of tonight, we have 305 cases in Harlow, which is a 92% increase over the last 7 days. We also had the government announcement today with regard to the so-called freedom day, with the various restrictions that are going to be lifted. So if we extrapolate that forward, those figures forward for the next sort of 4 weeks, and this is based on the 92%, which, given that there's likely more contact is likely to go up rather than down, you could expect there being roughly 585 cases next week, 1,124 the week after, 2,158 the week after, and 4,144 by the time we get to a month from now. So my question is, given that that is equivalent of about 1 in 5 of the population, given that's 1 in 5 of 20% of the population, 1 in 5 of the population, what plans have you actually got in place to deal with that and to deal with the impact that those figures are likely to have upon the services that are provided by this district council. And my question is to the portfolio holder for community resilience.
I'm sure he will be happy to comment, and there may be others that wish to comment. Councillor Charles.
Chair, thank you. This authority has made it clear over the last 15 months across administrations that it will take a cautious approach to dealing with this pandemic. Families in this town have endured tragedy, but I have been heartened by the response of volunteers, individual community leaders to respond to that challenge. The purpose of the community resilience strategy is to build on the momentum that we saw through the council's actions, volunteers, key workers, and our health and care workers in this town to respond to that challenge. And as part of that, we will look at the post-COVID recovery when we get to that point. As Councillor Edwards has pointed out, the government is moving along its roadmap as part of the process to respond to the coronavirus. This council will take a cautious approach and listen to the health professionals in this town. Co-attached to the community resilience strategy is actually the community wellbeing strategy that we will be working with health and care professionals to co-create, so that there is a holistic approach to dealing with the coronavirus. We're certainly not out of the woods yet. I'm under no illusions about that, and nor is this authority. But we will work in partnership with community leaders, volunteers, key workers and health and care professionals to continue to respond to this awful virus.
Councillor Edwards, can I also add that although you've asked this question on the floor and under the community engagement aspect, the council continues to have a joint COVID working group, and it was a real shame not to see everyone there. I know the England-Germany match was particularly of interest to a number of members, but it was a shame that wasn't fully attended the other night when that happened. And I also know you're going to be coming to joint briefings that have been set up for the administration and opposition with the CCG and the hospital trust. I'm happy to report back to the whole chamber that the CCG feel they're making real inroads into vaccinations, and that the hospital trust were able to tell us that they were not suffering dramatically from COVID cases recently, and they do feel that they have what they need to cope with the current COVID crisis. Of course, you'll know that Councillor Spence from Essex is in regular contact each week with the Leader of the Council, as he was with the former Leader of the Council, to update us on the whole of the Essex-wide position, and that the Chief Executive sits on the Essex-wide board with other Chief Executives, with the County, with Dr. Doherty, and with senior members of the Police and Fire Service to make sure that the whole community of Essex can respond to the pandemic should there be a further uptick in cases. Now, I study stats myself, I deal with stats for a living, and your view that it may be exponential over the following 4, 5, 6 weeks may not be true. There is some evidence already that the peak is starting to level off. But as Councillor Charles has said, the authority stands ready to work cross-party and with other districts and county authorities and with the healthcare system to deal with that. Thank you. Did you have a further question?
Comments in the sense that I find it interesting that you were saying that the view is that it's likely to really level off, given that the government spokesman today was saying that they anticipated that the exponential rise that we're seeing at the moment is likely to continue at least until mid-August.
I apologise, Councillor Edwards, I wasn't able to watch the briefing today. I was still at work and then came straight to this meeting, so I may have missed some salient information today. But certainly when the Health Trust and the CCG briefed us last week, they were happy that things were going in the right direction in part.
Another question, or a related question. I understand that there's now a walking facility at the local leisure centre. I just wonder whether, my question is can the council do any more to advertise that in terms of, with the exception of the stuff that's online, there doesn't appear to be anything in the way of notices like within the town centre or anywhere else saying that walking facility is available.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I'm sure Councillor Charles will be happy to deal with that. but it was one of the things that we covered last week in the meeting with the CCG and then also some brief councils. Councillor Schultz.
Just to follow that, Chair, the other priority for us, of course, and Councillor Johnson has focused on this, is the vaccination run, particularly to younger elements of the adult population. That will be our focus, and we are already working with Princess Alexandra Hospital, West Essex CCG, to understand where we can put potentially a vaccination bus into local areas as well. So we reinforce that message that the vaccination programme is absolutely crucial as we enter into the next 6 months.
And Councillor Edwards, just to follow up on the other half of your question about what advertising there is, we did push the CCG that there are a number of people who are not online and to distribute flyers, which they've been doing. We offered support about our community safety team to help get those flyers out around the town centre, into shops and in places where people who will see them regularly. So, but please, I would urge all councillors present, all officers present, and indeed the local media to spread the word about the drop-in vaccinations. It's really important that we get as many people vaccinated as possible. Are there any other questions on the forward work plan? Councillor Dirk.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions. The first one is item 10.12.8.7.2, which is on page 13, which is my favourite subject against my favourite Cabinet Member for Regeneration, which is the town plan draft for consultation. I was wondering whether or not the Cabinet Member could inform us of who is responsible for the drafting of this consultation document, who's monitoring that, what engagement is there going to be about councillors over this? Equally, when will we be expecting the outcome or an update? And can we be assured that as this is a town plan draft consultation, it will include the comments that have been made from the Speaker about the Stort crossing? And then I have a second separate item.
A second question. I think you said 2, and that was about 6 in
No, it was one work plan issue, but a clarification on the process.
Okay, thank you. So I think we'll go over to Councillor Swords. I think there were 6 different questions there, so you may want to take a bite and ask Councillor Durkin to clarify you didn't write them all down.
Yeah, I do apologise. I may have given this one again. You asked about who will be drafting this and whether we're monitoring that. It's a joint piece of work between the regeneration team and the planning team, so it's being monitored by both myself and Councillor Harlow. We also have a working group on the matter. There is a working group meeting coming up. Give me a date. I can't remember the date off the top of my head, but it's in the next couple of weeks, which there'll be obviously a significant update and a chance for further member engagement. As I said to you previously, we'll certainly, we believe we're on the time frame that we originally set out, and that we will be going to consultation in September, as I first said at the last meeting. So forgive me if I missed any of your questions, but in short, we believe we're on track. We think it's going to be a great town plan that's going to encompass all the very exciting things that are happening in the town, all the incredible government investments that are coming in, and I hope my flattery of that reflection will come through.
Councillor Durkin.
Yes, sorry, the response sounds like what you're doing is you're selling an idea, whereas actually I thought the principle of consultation was actually active engagement and active listening. You didn't mention the issue about Stort crossing, and will the many thousands of people who have raised these concerns, will that afford them the opportunity to take part in that particular procedure? And then I'll come on to the second.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Durkin. I think we all acknowledge that it's very important to consult properly and to tell the truth about what we're doing, so that residents get the true picture of what's happening in the town. Councillor Swords.
Yeah, thanks for following that up. Consultation, I couldn't agree more. It's the most important part of this whole piece of work. And I'm pleased that you're now on board with the idea of consultation, seeing the previous consultation that your administration did. On the Stort crossing, as you well know, the planning application hasn't yet come to this authority, and when it does, it will be looked at in due course, but this the town plan will look at all aspects of infrastructure that we envisage are both needed or already in train for the future. Perhaps no right or wrong.
Thank you. Councillor Durkin, you have a second question?
Yes, if I may, which is the next one down, which is 10.12.484, again on page 13. It's the use of compulsory purchase order to advance the development of Harlow and Gilston Garden Town. My eyes were drawn because this is my ward, Little Pardon and Hare Street, and I was wondering whether or not the Cabinet member could describe to me what land is planned to be purchased in the Little Pardon and Hare Street area, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durkin. I'll look at Councillor Harlow for that one.
I understand there are several parcels of land, and I think I can actually send you a plan so you can see which land is to be compulsory purchased.
Thank you, Councillor Harlow.
So, sorry, could I just confirm, because my hearing isn't great with this bit, you're saying there are several pieces of land in my ward that as a result of the development of Harlow, Gilston Garden Town, they could be subjected to compulsory purchasing. Is that what you said?
No.
Oh, well, what did you say?
There are
Sorry.
several parcels of land that need to be purchased, whether it's compulsory or by negotiation, we don't know yet. And I couldn't say whether they're in your ward or not, but I'll send you a plan and you can see.
Okay. But with respect, Chair, it does actually say expected date of decisions, wards affected, and it says Little Pardon and Hare Street. So I'm actually quite surprised that the Cabinet member can't answer a straightforward question of where in my ward is the idea that we're going to have to compulsory buy. But clearly I'll bow to his suggestion, and I'll look forward to getting
Councillor
these
Durkin,
results.
I think we need to speak the truth about these issues, and I think we need to be very careful about what we say that may not be correct. As Councillor Harbour has said, there may be the need to use compulsory purchase orders, and I remember when compulsory purchase orders for the current bridge crossing came before your cabinet last year. I think it was you yourself made the comment that sometimes the use of compulsory purchase orders can take a period of time, and that they need to be moved ahead of time in case a standard purchase does not work. I think if you'd like to ask very detailed questions like that, it is always, as your previous administration has always said, to invite the portfolio holder in advance to bring a map or bring the detail. But I believe Councillor Harbour has said that he will share with you the details of the map in the area.
And in all fairness to you, Chair, I acknowledge that and welcome that, and I'm absolutely delighted that the legacy of quotes has been so well used.
Brilliant, thank you. Any other questions on the forward work plan? Councillor Edwards.
If I may, under 10, 12, 7, 11, and this is about telling the truth, which is what you've heard. This is about the Harlow and Gilston Town Transport Strategy. At the last Cabinet meeting, I raised a question about the fact that the sustainable transport corridors and the proposals that were being put forward were not in any way, or never were, proposals for there to be a monorail. I was then told by Councillor Charles, if I remember rightly at the time, oh well, you only have to look at the pictures that there were, and if people of Harlow want to know if it's a monorail, then of course it's a monorail. Well, I have gone away and with the officers, I have actually looked at the pictures, and in no way is there any picture on there which would suggest a monorail. In fact, they're all wheeled vehicles.
Councillor Edwards, can I bring you to your question, please?
So my question is, was there ever a proposal for there to be a monorail by Harlow Council at any point? And I suppose, that's firstly a question. What could you say?
Let's go to the portfolio holders. It's very difficult for one administration to talk about the actions of the previous administration, but I think Councillor Charles and Councillor Salt may wish to jump in here. Councillor Salt, don't you?
Yeah, very brief response, because I can't speak for the previous administration, we can even catch parliamentary agenda when they were, for some unknown reasons, I wasn't an avid reader of the Harlow Local Party website. Perhaps I would invite Councillor Edwards to reflect on some of the articles that were posted on the Harlow Local Party website. He may find the answer to his question.
From my perspective, Councillor Edwards, I remember a very heated scrutiny calling committee talking about the details of the proposed transport system, and I certainly remember seeing the pictures of an elevated monorail in the local press. What you choose to call it is up to you, but I can say this administration is certainly against the idea of the monorail. Any further questions?
With respect, I would like to come back and just remind ourselves of the Nolan principles, and the Nolan principle is about being honest. And I would argue that this, at the moment, that the council, the present councillors are being dishonest. You're continuing to perpetrate a myth, and the myth being that there was a monorail. There was never, ever a monorail.
Well, thank God there never is going to be a monorail. Councillor Edwards, can I ask you to ask your question, please, rather than make a statement? This is the time for questions or for forward work.
My question again is, will the current councillors, the current sort of administration, will they accept that there was never ever a proposal for there to be a monorail in this town?
No, I won't accept that. I've seen the pictures that Councillor Hudson presented. Are there any other questions on the forward work? We move on to the next item, the year-end 2021 Finance and Performance Report. This is an officer report, and I believe the Chief Executive will be presenting it.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, actually. As you say, this is the year-end Finance and Performance Report. So the year-end is obviously the 31st of March, which is why it is an officer report. Obviously, the administration has changed, so it seemed appropriate that we actually made the report. I'll just draw you to a couple of highlights. The underspend was just £129,000, or 0.22% of the general fund budget, so I think that is quite impressive. And in relation to KPIs, council performed on or above target 46 out of 49, 94%. Again, I think quite impressive. There are 3 recommendations in the report. Myself and another officer are here, particularly on the finance. If anybody's got any further questions.
Thank you, Chair. I think we need to actually formally move the report to get it on the table tonight, and whilst it isn't this administration's period in time, we do owe it to people to get this in public record. So, Councillor Perrin, I believe you want to move this, but with a slight amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm glad to say it's my spot momentarily. I'd like to move a slight amendment to the recommendations. Under recommendation C1, I ask that recommendation C1 is deleted and a new recommendation D is added, which will state the following. The approval of carrying forward of £242,320 of budgets from the 2020 to 2021 to 2021-22 in respect to the general fund, as set out in Appendix 3B to the report, is delegated to the Deputy to the Chief Executive, the Head of Finance and Property Service, in consultation with the portfolio holder for finance and governance. The approval or otherwise to be determined by no later than 30th of July 2021. I'm quite happy to elaborate as to why I've made that recommendation change, Chair.
I will just formally second you and note that we're moving A, B, C2 and the amended D. Councillor Perrin, would you like to speak first?
Just simply to say, Chair, that the new administration is undergoing a budget review process, as we set out in our party manifesto. All said heads of service and portfolio holders are aware of the budget review process undergoing at the moment, and it seemed prudent that the portfolio holders would have the opportunity to ask heads of service about the carry forwards. And so following the budget review process, which is due to finish towards the end of July, the final decision on whether the carry forwards will continue or not will be made at that point. so to allow better scrutiny by portfolio holders in their relevant areas.
Thank you, Councillor Perrin. And that now being on the table, can I open the floor for questions first of all? And once we've done questions, we'll then move into the debate. So does anyone wish to ask a question on the paper? Councillor Sauce.
I've got two separate questions from my chair on two very different issues. The first is on page 67, where it refers to the council tax collection rate. At the time of, the report reflects, where did that administration benchmark in comparison to other councils in Essex and across the UK in terms of council tax collection rate?
Thank you, Councillor Sauce. Ryan, are you able to answer that, or is Mr. Freeman able to answer that?
So, no formal benchmarking has been carried out in terms of collection rates, but from conversations that I held across particularly Essex with other authorities, I think our position is pretty consistent with most of the Essex authorities for the previous financial year.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Councillor Sauce.
Yeah, and my other question again on page 67 and in the preceding pages, I've noted the difficulty the previous administration had with cutting trees, or in fact just maintaining trees, which is most evident throughout the report. So did the previous administration have policies for tree maintenance?
Shall I listen to Mr. Bradish for that?
The programme of tree maintenance has been up till now has been a reactive programme as issues have been identified generally by members of the public or by councillors. HTS have been deployed to undertake works to those trees. During the course of last year, we agreed with HTS that we would move towards a more proactive process of tree maintenance. And so have commissioned from them a survey of trees across the town, which we will be starting work on fairly shortly, so that we can then implement a proactive programme of tree maintenance from this year onwards.
Thank you, Mr. Bradish. Other questions? Mr. Carlton.
Thank you, Chair. The Chief Executive picked up on one of the earlier comments in the report when he said there is an underspend for the financial year of £129,000 or 0.22% of the general fund budget. That, Chair, is a terminological inexactitude. The gross general fund budget set before Council on 3rd of January 2020 was 16.69 million and the net budget was 9.96 million. £129,000 is 0.77% of the gross budget or 1.29% of the net budget. Not bad given the stresses and strains of last year, but it's not 0.22%. 129,000, however, is 0.22% of 58.63 million. So I'm wondering what figures are actually being referred to in that statement.
I think that's a question for Mr. Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. I think we previously responded to a very similar question from Councillor Carter, and I'm happy to explain outside of the Cabinet meeting the detail of the calculation. It's driven through the figures that are used in the Council tax setting process that comes forward to Cabinet and Council in January and February each year.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Vince.
Thank you, Chair. It is nice to get off. Just a couple of comments, questions really. Obviously, page 42 makes reference to Black History Month and Holocaust Memorial Day. Sadly, like many events that I was involved with last year, had to go online. I just wondered if there had been any move to make contact with the organisers of both events to ensure they happen over this this year from now to next month.
We're in constant contact with both organisations, but obviously we've got to play it almost by week to week. Obviously we'd like them face to face, but it depends on where we are with figures at that particular time. But I would like to think they would be face to face, but I can't guarantee it.
I think Brian, Councillor Vincent is obviously interested. Perhaps you could keep him updated there from the, keep me updated on those movements. Councillor Vincent, do you have a second question?
I think it was the other one was on page 41. There's been there's a bit about supporting people suffering domestic violence, which we know it is a huge issue, and there's been an increased issue throughout this pandemic. And we also know, sadly, there's a connection with football as well, with the increase in domestic violence, which is very, very disturbing and quite quite disgusting, frankly. But it's great news that we've done work to support that. I just wondering if you can provide me offline, if you haven't got it now, just a figure for the amount of people who supported throughout the pandemic on this particular huge issue.
Again, I'll go back to Councillor Vincent after the meeting with information.
I think actually that might be one of the audiences are probably interested to see.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Vincent, any further questions?
No, that's it.
Any other questions around the chain? Councillor Evans.
Under the regeneration of the thriving economy, the report noted that the council was working with partners to establish a £50 million Harlow investment fund to drive forward the regeneration, and the previous administration allocated £5 million to this fund and secured £5 million from Essex County Council. My question is, what's the position with regard to that Harlow investment fund currently?
I'll turn to Jane Griffin.
Yes, we're still waiting for Homes England to have signed off by the Treasury as consent for people and their board. So at the moment there is 5 million from the Council, 5 million from the Assistant Council. We expect the Treasury to sign off in the next few weeks.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? In which case we'll move to the debate on this issue. Does anyone wish to say? No? Councillor Vince?
Yeah, just very quickly, I believe it comes on page 40, but I just want to, and I know you there as well, Chair, that the Sheriff's Supplementary Committee, I just want to formally pass my thanks to HTS for their support of our town and people in our town throughout this crisis, not only providing supplies, hand sanitizer, social thing, but also giving up their depot for testing and testing. So I want to probably thank HTS. I'm sure you're joining that in the support they gave us now during this great time.
Councillor Vince, indeed, both of us made exactly that point at the shareholders subcommittee, and it was well received by HTS, and we specifically asked for that thanks to be passed directly into the staff on the paper. Anyone else wish to say anything about this? In which case, can I see if this is agreed, please? Subject to the amendment. Agreed? Agreed. Very much. We now move on to item 10, the Council Programme Outturn Report for 2021. And again, I think I'm looking at Mr. Freeman.
Chair, just very briefly as an introduction, the report presents both the outturn position for both the housing and the non-housing programme for the last financial year. It compares that outturn with the final approved budgets, which were subject to variation at the January and March Cabinet, and also seeks for approval for carry forwards for both the housing and the non-housing programmes to be approved. Clearly, as we've set out in the report and previous reports of the Cabinet during the year, COVID had quite a significant impact on our ability to deliver capital schemes, and that's been reflected in the report that's presented to the Cabinet tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Again, we need to formally get this moved and seconded before we can talk about it. So we'll look at Councillor Perry. Are you proposing this one? And seconding Councillor Carter. Right. Are there any questions on this? Councillor Durr.
Thank you, Chair. It's page 81, section 17, Table 1, where it identifies a number of schemes, revised building projects. I wonder if Councillor Carter could confirm whether or not the Lister House site is being maintained or has been slowed down to be stopped.
Thank you. Yep. No, Lister House is still in the pipeline, being actively reviewed. It may not reappear in exactly the same format as the planning application, but we still have some very exciting plans for it.
And can I just ask that the number of units that were identified from the 31st of March 2021 is 59? Is it my understanding that that number is going to be significantly reduced? To what?
I don't have that figure with me, but I can let you know afterwards.
But can you confirm it is going to be reduced from 59?
No, I can't confirm that.
Okay.
Councillor Hicks.
Yeah, similar on the same item actually, Councillor. Can I also ask that we can, I appreciate we can't give these figures now, but could we also have an indication as to what's going to happen in terms of, the percentage of social housing on that side as well? I appreciate you might go over that.
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you, Councillor Jones and Councillor Carter. I see Councillor Swords is indicating.
On the same item that's just been raised, why were the costs of those schemes so astronomically high per unit?
Councillor Carter? Are you able to speak to this specifically as the former administration's policy, or Councillor Carter?
No.
You're not
I
able to speak to this?
obviously had no involvement when we came to did it. I've certainly raised the cost of the properties in the past.
I remember well. Perhaps the officer involved at the time is able to help. I understand he may not be, but Mr. Murray? Oh, hang on. Brilliant.
I don't have the figures in front of me, but I can certainly provide them and explain how to change the next to items.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Councillor Swords?
Just one other question, I think it's on page 31. It says about the number of homes that the council acquired. Why did the previous administration buy into instead of building?
Again, I'm not sure Councillor Carter will be able to speak to what the previous administration did. Councillor Carter? Why did they buy homes on the open market?
Because they were running out of time to use the right to buy process, which have to be used within 3 years. There are restrictions as to how much can actually be spent on new homes. With only about 6 months to go, presumably, I can only assume that they realised they couldn't build that number of houses with that amount of money, and buying them on the open market was the only solution to avoid losing £3.5 million again.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Swords, will you have a follow-up? Any other questions? Councillor Dan, do you have a question?
Could Simon condemn the amount of money that's actually given over to central government in regards to council house sales? Nearly 1,000 houses have been sold in the last few years, and all that money is taken out of the Harlow economy and sent to Westminster. Would the government, would the new portfolio holder condemn this policy of the government of actually taking money out of Harlow?
Councillor Dan, there's a very tenuous link to the outturned for the last quarter of your previous administration. I will ask Councillor Carter what he has to say.
I'm not familiar with the policy that Councillor Dan is referring to, but whilst we are meandering back through history, before the reform of the housing subsidy scheme, this council was paying a third of its rent roll to the government. So for every pound that they received in rent, a third 33%, was going to the government, and we were receiving no benefit for it at all.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? In which case we move to debate on the capital programme accident report. Does anyone wish to say anything on it? Councillor Durfee.
Thank you, Chair. I think everybody should welcome this report because actually it shows that Harlow is actually in a strong and productive way. If we only look at two of the items, such as the community wellbeing, isn't it fantastic that this council was able to find the funding to yet again reinstate and make better Pets Corner, which is a beacon within the town park and is something that is cherished and loved by the many. And also equally, it's a congratulations at the commitment made to the community to reinvest in the town-wide paddling pools, which will result in better services, safer services, and more affordable services, i.e. because they're free to the wider community of Harlow. And then the final one, and these are just examples, it is with amazing gratitude to the staff and everybody about the huge success that we have achieved through the development, design, implementation and success story around the enterprise zone. And I think sometimes we always look at the short-term negative comments, but actually which always seem to be in some way a bit pathetic, when actually what we should be looking at is the difference that we make as a council to our community. So certainly within the contents of this report, there's a lot of good news that I think we should be collectively grateful for and to celebrate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Durfee. Anyone else? Councillor Bennett, I'll come to you in just a second. If no one else has got anything, I'll say something myself and say, yes, there is a lot to be welcomed, as Councillor Durfee has said. And I don't think any administration in its right mind of any would look to do down places like Pets Corner or the paddling pools. In fact, I remember one of the biggest meetings in recent history was when the previous administration tried to remove all the paddling pools and replace them with splash bars, which then caused a massive scrutiny review, which members from both sides spent a lot of time taking evidence from people, looking at the benefits and coming to the conclusion that actually paddling pools was the way forwards in this town. I look forward to them being used as soon as possible once we're out of lockdown and into the school summer holidays, provided the weather, great British weather outside, holds. And indeed, Councillor Durfee mentions the enterprise zone. It seems a long time ago now, but I remember being on a call with the then Chief Executive Malcolm Morley, Robert Halfon, our MP, and the then Chancellor of the Exchequer, many years ago, when we were just getting the news through that we had been awarded one of the enterprise zones, and it's a real benefit to the town now, both with jobs and with employability and improving the town generally, and playing into that UK innovation corridor that makes Harlow such a great place to live and work and start a business and get a job. But again, it was all down to masses of government money. And I formally put on record our thanks to the government for that investment. Councillor Perry, you were indicating if you'd like to sum us up, please.
Just really to echo your points, Chair, there is a lot to welcome, and being that I was the portfolio holder that led on the regeneration project and the enterprise zone back in the day, it was one of the proudest moments of my political career when we heard that news, and I pay tribute to all the people that were involved in that endeavour and that work. Everybody from the Member of Parliament who worked tirelessly in London for us to get that, from the officers of this council, for the members of the West Essex Alliance, for the South East Local Enterprise Partnership, and from many businesses that engaged with that, as well as the cross-party support we received at the time for that. So I'm very pleased with the regeneration and the enterprise zone in themselves. I'd also like to just thank the officers for the compilation of these reports. It's very difficult to compile reports on behalf of other people. And as you rightly said, Chair, and let's have this is a report of what happened when the Labour administration Labour Party were in administration, and so the officers had to put that together on their behalf. And so I thank them for their efforts here, and I move the report.
Thank you, Councillor Perrin. So, the Housing Revenue Account Outturn Report 2021, is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Sorry, that's the Capital Programme Outturn Report. I do apologise for the confusion. I take it that's still agreed. We now move on to the Housing Revenue Account Outturn Report 2021, and from an officer perspective, I'm going to go to Mr. Murray.
Thank you, Chair. The report in front of you, agenda item 11, is a report on the housing revenue account outturn for the period 2021. No surprises in the themes there that we should be identifying with, and shows the full year impact, unfortunately, of the pandemic and COVID-19. It compares Q4 to the Q3 report that was presented in January, and importantly aligns the budgetary and balance position with the performance position for key landlord activities. The recommendations that you see in A to E, quite large numbers, but they do show the impact of COVID-19, and they try to identify the outturn and the balancing position which will support activities going forward. Some of the key headlines include the impact of the suspended housing capital programme and its impact on the community, and the large carry forward going forward with the capital programme that you should saw the last report. But I'm quite pleased to report a better income position at Q4 than Q3. So good work there. It also identifies the challenges that were experienced by the council officers during 2021 and going forward, because this is not a short-term issue, particularly around rental income, homelessness, and the capital programme itself in terms of delivery. The balance of position, although large, will support the key housing activities for 21-22. And it also identified in there that housing services have identified 3 key recovery plans going forward, which they will report throughout the year. These include tackling housing need, recovering an income and service charge collection, and importantly HTS and their recovery and capital repairs, which reported to the shareholder subcommittee last Thursday. As you well know, officers did not present a housing account business plan last year for obvious reasons, but it is expected for there to be a review of the HRA business plan later this year, and for these risks that have been identified for outturn in Q4 to be managed and mitigated together with the challenges and opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Murray, for that introduction. This might be an officer report, still needs to be proposed and seconded. So, Councillor Carter, I believe you're going to propose this group, and Councillor Perrin to second. Thank you. Councillor Carter, do you want to do an introduction from your point of view?
No, I'll look at the end of my
Okay. Are there any questions on the housing revenue account outturn report? Doesn't look like there are. Is there anyone who'd like to say something in debate on the housing revenue account outturn report? In which case, Councillor Carter, over to you to sum up then.
Thank you, Chair. I'm slightly disappointed that there's no one prepared to make any comments on the housing revenue account, given its size and importance to not only to the council but also to the town. The council still owns around a third of all properties in the town. We have a major investment programme. It's a little bit complex with the HRA and the capital programme. You know, there's all crossover between the two. But there is a very healthy investment programme there. Unfortunately, due to the impact of COVID, we've not been able to, or we, the council, have not been able to progress the investment as we would like. But this is all now being reprioritised and rearranged along with HTS one of which is the rent collection. Now, despite all the problems of last year, despite all the problems of people losing their jobs, carrying on to furlough schemes, switching on to universal credit, we actually, people are saying we the council, achieved 98.69% recovery of the rent roll for last year, which I think everyone will agree is no mean achievement, but we can always do better. Another unfortunate impact of the virus is the impact on the homeless and rough sleepers. Because of the work that the council has been doing with its partner organisation, particularly Streets to Homes over the years, it has built up a very good reputation with the Ministry of Communities, Housing and Local Government, which is way around here, in terms of receiving grants, and we are able to invest that money in providing services, in getting people off the street and into homes. So both the rough sleepers and also the homeless, which are two separate categories. So what I'd like to end up by saying is a big thank you to the housing staff for all the work that they've been doing over the last 12 months, coping with their own uprooting and working from home and working remotely, and also continuing to contact and support our tenants and homeless people.
Thank you, Councillor, for that. Can I see the Housing Revenue Account Outturn Report 2021? And it is really at this time agreed. Thank you. We now move to item 12, which is the first of the reports authorised by portfolio holders tonight. And we look at the renewal of Article 4 directions. Can I turn to Councillor Harlow to introduce and move the item?
Thank you, Chair. Considering Article 4 and PD rights has been a topic of much discussion, especially from the previous administration, I was very surprised to see that the renewal of our Article 4 directions was not on the forward work plan. I've put it on there because it takes a full year to get a renewal in place. These expire, the existing Article 4 expires next July, so we need to start this month with the process. It's going to be slightly complicated because there are different classes of buildings that need to be included, and we need to protect all of our commercial areas. And then in addition, retail in the town centre needs to be protected. So this is the renewal process, or beginning the renewal process of the Article 4 directions, which will start as soon as it's approved.
Thank you. And are you formally moving that?
Yes, I'm formally moving.
And can I see a seconder? Seconder Swords. First of all, would anyone like to ask any questions on the report for us? Sir.
Thank you very much, Chair. In relation to the recommendations, the title of the Cabinet report is Renewal of Article 5, but actually the recommendations are about approval in principle new articles, both in A and B. So I'm not sure why are we saying that this is a renewal when actually what we're trying to do is actually extend and put new applications in place, or am I reading it wrong?
Well, I think for a start, it's Article 4 directives, not Article 5.
Did I say 5?
You did indeed, Councillor. But if I can hand over to Councillor Hardware to answer the question.
As I explained, this is the renewal of the existing Article 4 directives, but it's complicated by the fact that there are new classes of buildings to be included, but it's also a new Article 4 direction to protect the retail buildings in the town centre, which weren't previously covered.
Thank you, Chair. I understand exactly what the Cabinet member said, and I'm sorry if I said 5 rather than 4, but surely the report should actually reflect that this is actually about new, not just renewal.
I think the report does reflect that, Councillor Logan. I think you're rather splitting hairs there. The portfolio holder may have a further view. Any other questions? No? In which case we move to the debate. Would anyone like to say anything about the Article 4 directions? Councillor Durden.
Sorry, I would just like to say that these should be broadly welcomed by everybody. This was an initiative that was introduced several years ago due to the concerns that was actually happening in relation to offices being changed into horrendous short-term housing areas. And whilst we still have the issues around Terminus House and others, this Article 4 that was first introduced was welcomed across the floor by all particular ones. So I'm absolutely pleased that not only are we renewing it, but actually we're extending it and we're also putting new Article 4s in place. So I'm sure the report would be welcomed by your party.
Councillor Vince.
Yeah, you started working on hunger again there. But I did want to just pay a quick tribute to Councillor Danny Burton, who obviously was very much a big figure in pushing this direction forward, this Article 4 direction forward in the first place. And I know he's not here, but I'm sure he'll be pleased to know that, and I'm hoping that you will all agree with him that it's the right thing to do. But yeah, as I say, we also welcome that.
Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Stalls?
Yeah, and I know and welcome the support from the opposition on this, and I of course refer to what Councillor Harlow said, given their support was interesting to see that they didn't put on their full work plan when the administration, of course, by doing so, it would have expired. But you know, they had the powers to stop this to begin with and never used them, and of course they never opposed it. It came through Parliament as a statutory instrument in 2013, but I appreciate the fact that now makes the party better.
Thank you, Councillor Laws. Anyone else? In which case, Councillor Harlow, would you like to sum us up, please?
Yeah, as I explained, this is the renewal of the existing, slight amendment to the existing, and introduction of new Article 4 directions. And I hope that you will approve them.
Short and sweet.
Absolutely, that's next.
In which case, can I ask if the report on the renewal of Article 4 directions is agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much. We go back to Councillor Hardway now for item 13, the Harlow Design Guide, approval for consultation. Councillor Harlow.
Yes, the Harlow Design Guide is 10 years old and needs to be updated to reflect our new local plan. The Harlow and Gilston Garden Town Sustainability Checklist and a couple of regulations. So this is basically an interim update pending a full review of the design guide next year. But this addendum is in 5 sections. The first one covering tall buildings, second section on privacy and overlooking, because we do have quite a lot of applications in and coming on tall buildings in the town centre. There's also section 3 on amenity space and gardens, section 4 updated household guidance, and section 5 climate change. So this is an interim pending a full review next year.
Are you full
review?
And second, is that right? Councillor Salisbury. We'll go to questions. Questions on the floor, first of all. Councillor Durden.
I'm going to go tonight. Thank you, Chair. In relation to page 110, section E, which is section 5, climate change, I was just wondering what assurances can we, and also the gentleman who asked the question this evening, what reassurances can we give in relation to sustainable design, construction and energy use in relation to our limited involvement with the Stork crossing?
Okay, interesting question, Councillor Harlow.
Because this hasn't been consulted or adopted, this will have no influence on the current application.
So, Councillor Harlow, can I follow that up? Would that mean that the application that comes before us would have to rely on the previous design guide that was passed 10 years ago and hasn't been amended since?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I'll move to comments then and discussion. Can I open that, please? I'd like to say how welcome it is that we are renewing the design guide, because I do think it's important, if not only for some of the comments that Councillor Durkin has made there, that things do happen, things do creep up, and if you don't keep these documents up to date, the can suffer. I'm really pleased that there is a section on climate change in there, and that we are talking about construction and sustainable energy usage, sustainable design. I think it's an important document tonight, and I think there's a lot of work clearly has gone in under the surface here from our officers, so thank you for that. And I also note, as it says in the report, that it should be read alongside the HGGT sustainability guidance and checklist, which we discussed at the previous cabinet meeting. And I remember the debate on that, where it was supported cross-party, particularly because it went further than government guidelines and asked for developers to do more than the minimum, to go that step further and try and really push the quality and the sustainability of the buildings. And Councillor Harlow, can I also thank the fact that in there you've included that this won't be just a standard consultation for 4 weeks that we would normally do as a council, but it's 6 weeks to cover the fact that the code is still ongoing and we're entering the summer holiday period. So we want to make sure that this is as widely consulted as possible, and I thank you for bringing that as part of the report. Does anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Harlow, over to you to wrap up then.
Yes, thank you, Chair, for taking summing up away from me. But yes, as the summer holidays are coming up and COVID restrictions, this is going to be a 6-week consultation instead of the required 4, to give everybody the opportunity to give their views. Thank you.
In which case, can I see if the design guide has been approved by this cabinet? Agreed. Thank you. We now move on to the next item, which is the Cabinet Policy Development Working Group Work Plan. And I believe we have to agree this. Can I just say that it has been set in consultation with the chair of that group, but she reassures me that when that group meets in early August, the group will also have the chance to flag any other areas of work. But I think there's quite a comprehensive work plan already, picking up some of the very interesting parts of the Cabinet's plan going forward. Particularly interested to hear wider member involvement through that group on the update of the carbon management plan, electric vehicle installing points, and of course transport and climate change strategies. So but there's a lot there for the development working group to get their teeth into. I know in previous years that working group hasn't operated quite as I think all councillors would have liked. It hasn't met as often as I think it should, and I'm really keen to see a very productive work plan there. Are there any questions on the work plan? Councillor Edwards.
Just a request, really. I welcome obviously welcome the fact that this now looks to be an active committee, which is good. Just a plea really going forward, when we come to the discussion next year as to what should be on that and what should go to scrutiny, and this is nothing to do with me personally, this is to do with whoever is the chair of scrutiny at the time, I think it would be very useful if there could be a discussion prior to the work plan proposal being made, a discussion between whoever is chair of scrutiny and the chair of the working committee, just so that we can have a look at what goes where, almost prior to it necessarily coming to this committee, if that's at all possible.
I would encourage that sort of conversation between the chair and vice chair of both of those committees, and happy to support and help facilitate that, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Durkin, question from you?
Yes, please, Chair. I note the report and I welcome the report, and I noticed that some of the items are going to be spread over the whole period of time, but some have only got one reporting mechanism, and it's a bit like electric vehicle charging points, open space and health and well-being. I was just wondering if you could just explain, are they just simply going to be receiving a report for recommendation, or is there going to be action following this, and if so, why hasn't that been put into the forward plan of this working group?
I'm not the chair of the working group,
No, you are the
she's,
chair of the
and she's not here. However, I know that she intends to run the group in a similar way to scrutiny, but using pre-scrutiny, and to ensure that members of both sides, backbenchers of both sides, are happy with what is coming before the Cabinet, have a chance to feed into reports that are coming before the Cabinet, has a chance to exercise that pre-scrutiny. But I think Thursday the 5th of August is the point where I don't want to constrain backbenchers of both sides, but I think that's where that debate really needs to be had. I don't think it's appropriate for any Cabinet to constrain the people that look at their work plan, to constrain any form of scrutiny. And I'll be happy to see what comes back from that committee, from the backbenchers of both sides.
Chair, just to clarify, my question was not about constraining a committee made up, it was just simply asking a question that some seem to have regular updates on the agenda, where others just seem to be a one-off, and that was all I was asking the question about.
I'll pass the question on to the chair and ask if it's responsive. Good. Are there any other questions? Do we need to have a debate on the work plan? I don't think. Has anyone indicated? In which case, can we see if that's agreed? Agreed. Thank you. We move to the next item, which is the communications from committees, working groups, parties and panels. Because none of them have met yet in the cycle properly, we have no reports to come back at this stage. The minutes of panels and working groups, again, we have none to report back to Cabinet at this stage. And item 17, matters of urgent business. I've not been notified of any. I haven't seen anyone raising their hand. In which case, can I thank you all, public and councillors and officers, for their attendance tonight, and wish you a safe journey home. Thank you.